Good morning. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, say yes in chat box. Then we can continue. Okay. Now, last week we started to discuss about the directions issued by the central bank to finance companies. However, at the beginning, we'll move into another heading today, superannuation. Now, we are covering entire syllabus and directions, determinations we have to discuss in detail. While doing that, I'll take up few small sub areas where they were tested in past papers as well. So superannuation is one such. Only once this area was tested in a past paper. But since it's an important area, first I'll take up this. What is superannuation? Superannuation is an organizational pension program created by a company for the benefit of its employees. It is also referred to as a company pension plan. Funds deposited in a superannuation account will grow, typically without any tax implications, until retirement or withdrawal. Now that is called superannuation. Okay, now just type me, what is your average age? Can someone type me your age? How old are you? Can someone just type me an answer? Yeah. What is your age? 19. Okay. So at this age, you are not even worried about retirement. You don't even think about retirement. Right. When do you think about retirement? People, employees started to think about retirement when they are about to retire. That's too late. Now, there are compulsory retirement plans, let's say EPF, ETF. So that's a superannuation. Then how do you manage them? So that is the area we discuss. Superannuation. So it's a pension program created by a company for the benefit of its employees. A company will look after the employees when they are employed. But the moment they retire, the employees have to look after themselves. But they don't have any income. That's where the retirement plan comes. Superannuation funds. The investment policy of the major superannuation funds continue to focus on earning a long-term positive real rate of return for the members, whilst ensuring the safety of investments and maintaining adequate liquidity for refund payments and other expenditure. Okay, so you are 19 years old. Let's say you are 20 years old. As you grow old, one day you have to retire. So let's think you have to retire by the age of 60. That means what? You are earning for 40 years. Within these 40 years, if you can save something for your retirement, then after 60, you can have a burden-free life. For that, you have to prepare from the very first day you get employed. Therefore, the superannuation fund looks in long-term positive rate. Okay, so your excess money is invested for a period more than 40 years. That's a very long term. But while doing that, the fund must be liquid. Means what? There must be sufficient amount of cash as well. When you think about long-term investment, you will not be able to withdraw that money easily. But a certain amount you must keep in liquid position. Why? Because of sudden urgent withdrawals. Okay, for an example, if someone dies or migrate, then there must be adequate cash to refund the payment. So superannuation funds look into basically two things: long-term return, then liquidity. Superannuation fund sector consists of EPF, that's number one, which is the largest systemically important superannuation fund in Sri Lanka. Then you have ETF, Employees Trust Fund, Public Services Provident Fund, PSFS, and APPFS, Approved Private Provident Funds. Okay. Now tell me, how many superannuation funds are available in Sri Lanka? How many superannuation funds are available in Sri Lanka? You can look at that slide. What is the number? How many funds are discussed in this slide? Tell me the number. EPF, ETF, PSFS, APPFS. How many superannuation funds you have in Sri Lanka? The answer is in the slide. Four. Yes, there are four. So what are they? Now that's you have to remember. For your exam purpose, if you asked, what are the superannuation funds in Sri Lanka? You must be able to say 1, 2, 3, 4. EPF, Employees Provident Fund. ETF, Employees Trust Fund. PSFS, Public Services Provident Fund. And number 4, APPFS, Approved Private Provident Funds. Now we are just reading about them. The risk profiles of superannuation funds, particularly of the two major funds, that is EPF and ETF, are similar, and their financial positions indicate that their risks were managed adequately. The credit risk of the fund is negligible, as over 90% of their investments are held in government securities, which have zero default risk. Earlier, we have talked about Norwegian Petroleum Fund or the Norway Retirement Fund. Can you remember? Okay. Where do they invest? Norges Bank or the Norwegian Central Bank manage Norwegian Petroleum Fund. What are the investment methods they have selected? Where do they invest? Now here we talk about EPF and ETF, and we say 90% is invested in government securities. Therefore, risk is at a minimum level. Norges Bank, Norwegian Central Bank manage Norwegian Petroleum Fund. That's another fund, a huge fund in the world. Where do they invest? Can you remember? We discussed that. And I asked you to visit the website. Okay, that fund is based on oil, but they never invest in oil. Okay, their source is oil. That's why that is known as Norwegian Petroleum Fund. Where do they invest? The purpose of investing is, if they lose the oil resources one day, still they want to survive. So where do they invest? I have given you, and I have asked you to visit the website. Yeah. Others, tell me, where do they invest? Norwegian Petroleum Fund. Yeah. I said they own more than 2% of the entire shares of the world. So one investment option is equity. That's a huge amount for them. Then they invest in real estates. Then they invest in debt instruments. But if we compare with our big funds, they don't invest much in stocks because they are highly risky. They invest in less risky government securities. So I want you to have a good understanding of these different investment funds. Okay, so EPF and ETF, 90% of investments are held in government securities, which have zero default risk. So the risk is at a very low level. The funds are exposed to interest rate risk as a result of the high concentration on investment in fixed income securities. But the interest rate has been minimized by investing in a variety of securities with different yields and maturities. Okay. Now, First Capital has sent a text message last week. They say treasury bill rate 4.5, bank FD rate 6%, finance companies FD rate 8.5, but stock market has given 20% return from May to August of this year, 20%. Now that's one area. These funds, EPF and ETF, are exposed to interest rate risk. Interest rate is fluctuating. So that risk is exposed to them. But they're managing that with having different set of securities. The fund's vulnerability to liquidity risk is minimal, given the steady inflow of funds through member short-term treasury securities. Okay, so the vulnerability to liquidity risk is minimal because there is a steady inflow of funds through short-term treasury securities. So liquidity issue is not there. Right. Now we are looking at EPF. Now that is the biggest fund in Sri Lanka. The EPF was established under EPF Act number 15 of 1958 to cover any employment, including any employment in the service of a corporation whose capital or part of the capital is provided by the government. Under current legislation, any establishment, irrespective of the type of category of employment, becomes legally liable for payment of contribution to the EPF on recruitment of even a single employee, but household employees are excluded. Okay. So even if there is a company that has included only one employee, still you have to pay EPF. The EPF is the largest superannuation fund available for private and semi-government employees. The EPF had 2.4 million contributing members in 2016, representing 20% of the working age population. Total fund balance has increased. Okay. The Commission of Labour is in charge of the general administration of the Act, while the financial responsibilities with the Monetary Board of Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Now that's something you have to remember. Who is monitoring it? Who is administrating it? EPF, general administration is done by Commission of Labour, and the responsibility lies with Monetary Board of Sri Lanka, Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Monetary Board of CBSL. All employees, either permanent, temporary, apprentices, casual, or shift workers, are considered to be covered. And enrollment in the EPF is mandatory. Under the EPF, as mentioned above, employer and employee are required to make monthly contribution to the EPF. Now, this is how the EPF contribution takes place. The employer as well as the employee has to contribute to it. Even if you have a single employee, still you have to contribute to it. The earnings for the period include salaries and wages, cost of living allowances, cash value of meals provided, and food allowances. Employees are prohibited from compensating themselves for this contribution through reduced wages. In the event this happened, the commissioner can order the employer to pay the presumed differences in contributions. Employers are also not allowed to deduct the contribution amount from the employee's earnings. The EPF mainly provides income security after retirement to contributing members. Members can withdraw their EPF account fund balances after reaching the age of 50 for females and 55 for males. Okay, once government came up with a proposal to extend it to 60 years, but there were protests, and you can withdraw EPF savings if you are a male after 55 and if you are a female after 50. The refund amount consists of all accumulated contributions and accumulated interests. Members can also withdraw their account balances before reaching the specified age if they leave the workforce due to permanent disability, migration, join a pensionable employment, or upon marriage for female employees. In free trade zone, we have seen many females join work, and before getting married, they resign and withdraw their EPF. Members can nominate beneficiaries to be eligible to receive refunds if the member dies before reaching the prescribed age. The average value of the refund was nearly 580,000 in 2016. Total contributions collected was 118 billion, and total refunds were 108 billion during 2016. Investment of funds or surplus income of the fund, 11 billion, which has increased. Oh, okay. So that's about fund values. However, the EPF falls short of providing private sector employee income security in their old age. This is because, number one, EPF provides a lump sum payment instead of a periodic income. There is inadequate replacement income. So EPF pays you a lump sum instead of ensuring a monthly income. So that's some kind of, anyway, it has given the retired person to manage his fund himself. Okay. Now tell me, what are the investment sources you recommend for a person who gets EPF lump sum after reaching age 55? Tell me investment sources. Now, the problem is mentioned here. When you retire, EPF will give you a lump sum, but you have to live after retiring. Say you retire at the age of 60, and maybe you are living up to another 25 years. Till then, there are monthly expenses you have to meet. You are given a lump sum, but you have to meet monthly expenses. You need not to consume the entire lump sum within 1 week, right? But you need a steady monthly income until you die. So what are the investment options available for the senior citizen who retire and get the EPF? What are your suggestions? Yeah, for the person who retire, having a lump sum, what do you recommend? Okay, now, right, property is okay if you get a monthly income like building rent, right? Because when you retire, you need not the capital appreciation, but basically you need a monthly steady income. So I'll accept property. You buy a property and you get monthly building rent. That's okay. What are the other options available? Yeah. Shares, there is argument. When you are old, shares can be too risky. The reason is I have shown you in 1929 when the world stock market, American stock market collapsed. It took 25 years to recover. Means what? You are retiring at the age of 60 and you invest your entire portfolio in shares and the share market collapse. And the market will recover only after 25 years. Maybe you will not live long that enough to see recover. So you are in a problem. So shares are not recommended for the senior citizens. Fixed deposits, yes. So you get a good monthly return. So most of the senior citizens prefer to go for fixed deposits, and they get 1% more than average citizen. Right. So these are the investment options available. Right. So that's what we said. EPF, you get a lump sum, not a monthly income. Purchasing an annuity is not realistic option for most members since the annuity market in Sri Lanka is limited. Okay. There are annuities that will ensure you get monthly income, but annuity market is limited in Sri Lanka. Many insurance companies offered investment plans, retirement plans, like SLIC once introduced Yashtiya. That's a good one. Then Janashakti came up with a plan, Visram. But that kind of options are very much limited. Even these insurance companies are not continuing these good packages. Even if the individual was able to invest their EPF funds as an annuity, it would be inadequate income for most. Yeah, that's another drawback of seniors, drawback found by senior citizens. You may get a monthly income, but that is not sufficient. Right, so that's on EPF, Approved Provident Funds and Pension Funds. The EPF Act of 1958 allowed for the establishment of approved provident and pension funds or approved contributory pension schemes. Employers can contribute towards the APPF instead of EPF. In 1996, legislation was introduced preventing the establishment of new APPF funds, although existing APPF funds were allowed to continue. There were 177 approved pension funds in 2006 with 96 billion worth of assets, and that decreased to 155 APPFs with 198 billion total assets. Okay, so approved provident funds will not be added. The existing will survive, but no more added. Anyway, for your answer, you have 4 EPF, ETF, Public Service Provident Fund, and approved private provident funds. Approved provident and pension funds. Right, so in EPF, contribution on salary from employers, how much an employee, how much? I have mentioned the number, but that's anyway automatically got deleted, but you know the number. Tell me the number. EPF, how much is contributed by the employer and how much by the employee? EPF, how much contributed by the employer? Tell me the percentage. Employee, %12% and 8%. Employer contribute 12%, employee contribute 8%. Correct. Krishna, your answer is correct. Employer contribute 12% and employee contribute 8%. Okay, so altogether, out of our salary, 20% is saved and automatically get accumulated. That's something very good for the employees, because they themselves do not think about retirement. When you join your employment life as early as 20, you are not at least worried about retirement. But when it reaches, you are too late to start. So compulsory, contractually, you get a good saving. Your employer contribute 12% and you have to contribute for 8%. Okay, somehow that number has got deleted. Please make a note of it. Employer 12% and employee 8%. Funds managed by the Monetary Board of CBSL and administered by the Commission of Labour. ETF. Okay, what is the percentage? ETF. What is the percentage? 3%, correct. 3% ETF by the employers. Employees trust fund, only 3% of the salary. Okay, so there are 4 funds. You must be able to name the 4 funds, then who monitor and administer them, especially ETF and ETF. Now, all the funds diversify. Why do funds diversify? Number one, to maintain liquidity. Okay, we believe that you will live long and retire by taking the entire amount. But if something happens, maybe as mentioned earlier, a female want to withdraw his money before marriage, or an employee want to migrate and leave Sri Lankan residence, he need money, or sudden death. To face that, the fund must have enough cash. Reduce investment concentration risk. Okay, if you invest only in one area, if that area is affected, therefore we have to diversify. Enhance rate of return. When I talked about Norwegian Petroleum Fund, I said earlier, they were only investing in treasury bills of US, but they soon found other funds like Qatar Petroleum Fund is earning about 20% or more, while Norges Fund earned less than 3%. So that's an area you have to address. Enhance rate of return. So you have to diversify. Right. So what is going to be concentration risk? Concentration risk is a banking term describing the level of risk in a bank's portfolio arising from concentration to a single counterparty, sector, or country. The risk arises from the observation that more concentrated portfolios are less diversified, and therefore the return on the underlying assets are more correlated. Okay. Now, every investment funds, in order to reduce risk, they prefer to diversify. Okay. Suppose after 2009, the number of tourist arrivals to Sri Lanka started to increase substantially. Up to 2009, there were less than 500,000 tourist arrivals per annum. Even though Sri Lanka used to be a very good tourist destination, number of arrivals was less than 500,000 until 2009. But after ending this 30-odd years odd war, number of tourist arrivals started to escalate. And from 2009 to 2019, a very good decade, tourism was booming in Sri Lanka. And we recorded even 2 million tourist arrivals. Hotels like John Keel's Holdings, they started to give dividends. Think about hotels like Tangerine, then Asian Hotel Properties started to give substantially good dividends. Especially Asian Hotel Properties was trading at 10 rupees by 2009 per share. But by 2015, they were paying about 4 to 5 rupees per, as dividend per year. Means what? If you have purchased Asian Hotel Properties share at 10 rupees, 50% dividend yield continuously for 10 years. Right? Means what? If I get 50% return from one investment when the bank rate is about 10%, 12%, I'm extremely happy. And you will find that is the best investment method. Suppose I invested my entire portfolio in tourism. Am I happy now? 2019 April, Saharan attacked. 2020 March, Corona attacked. Tourism became extremely risky investment. Okay, for one continuous decade, the best investment. After that, it's gone. Okay, so that's why we diversify our investments. Now, concentration risk is limiting your investment into one sector, say tourism sector. That's why we diversify. Okay. Now, good investors diversify and you get a steady good income. ETF, they invest on behalf of the employees, and first thing they have to reduce is risk, so they diversify. Okay, plan your retirement now. You said you are 19 years old. Very good, fantastic. Start up your retirement plan now if you are employed. The moment you get monthly salary, from the very first salary, think about your retirement. Okay, right. So that's one simple area. Only in one past paper that is asked. Okay, what is superannuation? You must be able to tell that. What are the superannuation funds in Sri Lanka? 1, 2, 3, 4. What are they? Okay, who manage and administer EPF? Who administer ETF fund? What is the contribution levels? That's you must know. Okay, right. So with that, we'll move into other areas. Yeah, before that, we were discussing about corporate governance, and we talked about board appointed committees. Right. Now, before moving up and discussing further on corporate governance, I'll ask you a few questions. Okay. How many times should a board meet within a year? How many times a board should meet within a year for the finance company? 12 times, very good. Can the same person be the CEO and chairman after 2012? Can the same person be chairman and CEO? Say yes or no, that's all. Okay, can be appointment of senior director. Let's see. The roles of chairman and CEO shall be separated and shall not be performed by one and the same person after 3 years commencing from January 2009. Okay, so if you were the chairman and the CEO in 2009, You are given 3 more years to adjust. Till then, you can have a senior director. But after 2012, you cannot have the same person performing these two duties. Okay? Right? So after 2012, the same person cannot be appointed as the chairman and CEO. Right? If you happen to have the chairman and CEO, yes, senior director should be appointed. But after 2012, it's not possible. Okay, right. What is the criteria for fitness and propriety for directors? There are 2 factors. What are they? Fitness and propriety of a director. There are 2 factors. Yes, there's age limit. That's number 1. What is the other one? Correct? Nadini? What is the other factor? Age is one factor. The number of, yeah, very good. You cannot be a director in more than 20 companies. These are the 2 factors. Well, when one very senior banker retired at the age of 70, welfare president in the farewell speech said, "Sir, you are retiring at the age of 70, being a director of a small country's finance company. But the biggest economy of the world is accepted by Donald Trump, maybe slightly aged than you." Okay. So Mahathir bin Mohamad accepted Malaysia again at the age of 90s. Right. So there are a lot of posts shared about the ages of Sri Lankan top-ranking politicians. Okay. So there's a debate whether to increase this 70 or not. Right. Anyway, for the time being, remember the propriety of director is depending on 2 factors: number of companies he's holding as a director and the age. Okay, right. Now, audit committee is appointed by the board. Audit committee, there's a chairman who should be a non-executive director and who has qualifications in experience in accounts or audit. Okay, who is a non-executive director? Who is a non-executive director? Non-executive director is a person who is not involving in day-to-day management activities. Okay, so one such becomes the chairman with qualification. The board members appointed to the committee shall be non-executive directors. So they are not involving in day-to-day activities. When you are involving in day-to-day activities, you want to protect your activities. Here, the task is to audit. The committee shall make recommendation on matters connected with the appointment of external auditors, the implementation of the central bank guidelines, the application of the relevant accounting standards, the service provided audit fee, resignation or dismissal of auditor. So these things are done by audit committee. The committee shall review and monitor the external auditors' independence and objectivity. The committee shall develop and implement a policy with the approval of the board on the engagement of external auditors. So the external auditor regarding that discussed by audit committee. Number F, the committee shall, before the audit commences, discuss and finalize with the external auditors the nature and the scope of the audit, including an assessment of the finance compliances with the directions issued by the Act, and management's internal controls over financial reporting, the preparation of financial statements in accordance with the relevant accounting principles, the coordination between auditors, where more than one auditor is involved. Number G, the committee shall review the financial information of the finance company in order to monitor the integrity of the financial statements, its annual report, accounts and periodical reports prepared for the disclosure, okay, shall focus particularly on major judgmental areas, any changes in accounting policies and practices, the significant adjustments arising from audit, the going concern assumption, okay. H, the committee shall discuss issues, problems, and reservation arising from the interim and final audits. I, the committee shall review the external auditor's management letter and management response thereto. J, the committee shall take the following steps. Number one, review the adequacy of the scope, function, and resource of the internal audit department and satisfy itself that the department has necessary authority to carry out its work. Number two, review, okay, I think last week we talked about barring bank and how the chairman recalled the auditing team 3 times from the Singapore unit. Right. Now that's the problem. When the top is in favor for one employee or a specific department because of their sheer performance, internal audit will be asked not to audit that. That was the reason why Barring Bank failed. Now this is why non-executive directors consist of audit committee. Okay, they are independently looking into that. So they are not prevented from auditing certain areas. Okay, so the audit department has authority, necessary authority to carry out its work. So no one can say, this department, please don't audit. No, they have the necessary authority to do that. Review the internal audit program and results of the internal audit process. Okay, and do any recommendations. Review any appraisal assessment of the performance of the head and senior staff members of internal audit. Recommend an appointment or terminate the head or senior staff members and outsourced service providers to the internal audit function. Ensure that the committee apprised of resignation of senior staff members of the internal audit department, including the chief internal auditor. Okay, so all these areas are covered by audit committee. K, the committee shall consider the major findings of internal investigations and management's responses thereto. The chief financial officer and the chief internal auditor and representative of the external auditors may normally attend meetings. So they are the people who attend to these meetings. Other board members and the CEO may also attend meetings upon the invitation of the committee. However, at least once in 6 months, the committee shall meet with the external auditors without the executive directors being present. So this is how a company is managed. Day-to-day management is done by CEO, but CEO may attend to these audit committees upon invitation. Okay. However, at least once in 6 months, this audit committee will meet with the external auditors without any executive director. The committee shall have explicit authority to investigate into any matter within its terms of reference, the resource which it may need, full access to information, authority to obtain external professional advice. And the committee shall meet regularly with due notice of issues, or the board shall in the annual report disclose these things. P, the secretary of the committee shall record and keep detailed minutes of the audit committee. Okay, right. So you can see why this committee is kept independent. We call auditors are independent. The committee shall review arrangements by which employees of the finance company may, in confidence, raise concerns about possible improprieties in financial reporting, internal control, or other matters. Accordingly, the committee shall ensure that the proper arrangements are in place for the fair and independent investigation of such matters and for appropriate follow-up action, and to act as the key representative body for overseeing the finance company's relationship with the external auditor. So the whistleblowers can raise issues and the auditors may audit that. Okay. So auditing is a serious concern for the sustainability of a business. The best example is Barring Bank, Enron. Enron last week we just discussed with some examples. A whistleblower notified certain issues, and by the time the issues were found, the company was not in a position to sustain. Barring Bank, the same. This is why internal audit department, external auditors, and audit committee are very important. Even the seniors like chief executive officer may attend only upon invitation. There can be meetings where none of these executive directors involved. Without their presence, external auditor will meet with the audit committee and discuss the issues. That will ensure power is checked. The problem is most powerful people are not checked, and the net result is they tend to do a lot of corrupted activities. We have seen that in politics and in sports, in many areas. But company structure ensures that is not happening. Right? When one individual becomes extremely powerful, as we talked earlier, power corrupts you, absolute power corrupts you absolutely. That's why independent committees are appointed. Okay, so audit committee is one such major committee appointed. The other is IRMC committee, Integrated Risk Management Committee. Once again, first we discuss who will be there. Committee shall consist of at least one non-executive director, CEO and key management personnel supervising broad risk categories like credit, market, liquidity, operational and strategic risks. The committee shall work with the key management personnel closely and make decisions on behalf of the board within the framework of the authority and responsibility assigned to the committee. Now, in this committee, CEO is a member, not in the audit committee. At least one non-executive director. The other one, it's mainly non-executive directors. The committee shall assess all risks, credit, market, liquidity, operational, and strategic risks to the finance company on a monthly basis. Okay, so you should know what are these risks. Anyway, we'll talk about risk later. So you must know individually what is meant by these risks. Okay? So appropriate risk indicators and management information. In the case of subsidiary companies and associate companies, risk management shall be done both on the finance company basis and group basis. Okay. So most of these banks and finance companies start up subsidiaries. Subsidiaries involved in businesses which are directly involved with the financial intermediation or not. Okay, for an example, I think almost all big banks have a property company. Okay, if you think about ours, People's Leasing and Finance PLC, under our parenthood, there are subsidiaries like People's Property Limited, that's looking after one building, head office building. Then we have another one, Havelock Properties, that's another subsidiary looking after another building. Similarly, many banks have their property buildings, and most of them are listed. Okay. Then we have another company, People's Leasing Fleet Management, People's Insurance PLC, which is also another listed company. Okay. So these are the subsidiaries coming under our arm. Then we have another subsidiary, microcommerce. Now, microcommerce into financial intermediation. Insurance is linked to financial. But these two properties are not linked to main business. However, risk committee look into these subsidiaries as well. Okay. Sometimes mother company is doing well, that is listed, but there are many subsidiaries which are not listed and may cause the mother company to fail. Therefore, board integrated risk committee will look into subsidiaries and associates. The committee shall review the adequacy and effectiveness of all management level committees such as credit committee, ALCO, or asset liability committee to address specific risks. D. The committee shall take prompt corrective action to mitigate the effects of specific risks in the cases, such as risks at levels beyond the prudent level decided by the committee. E. The committee shall meet at least quarterly. Now, the board should meet 12 times per annum, at least once in a month. But here, quarterly. All aspects of risk management, including the updated business continuity plans. Okay, so you have BCP, Business Continuity Plan. We'll talk about it in detail as well. Okay. Now, Integrated Risk Management Committee will meet, then CEO, top management, management of subsidiaries companies, all meet together. And there'll be a document which you call dashboard. There are colors showing green, red, amber. Red colored means that's highly risky. We take time and discuss them into details. Some indicators are green, that means the risk level is minimum. Then there are yellow colored or amber colored, means the risk levels should be addressed. Red, we take detail and discuss. So that's how we manage and ensure the business is going concern. Continue. The committee shall take appropriate actions against the officers responsible for failure to identify specific risks and take prompt corrective actions as recommended by the committee and or as directed by the Director of Department of Supervision of NBFIs of CBSL. The committee shall submit risk assessment report within a week. The committee shall establish compliance functions to assess the finance company's compliance with laws, regulations, directions, rules. Okay. So finance companies are governed by regulated by regulator. There are many areas which have to comply. So this integrated risk management committee will look into whether we are following these things. Okay, now this area, corporate governance, you have to read these reading materials and you need not to buy heart. Just remember them easily. Okay, get the meaning of it. Right? Why do we want this? Like for exam purpose, we'll talk with real exam questions. There were questions like the authority of chairman and the CEO and the remuneration levels. Okay, who is independent director? Who is non-executive independent director? So you must know them. Then about the committees. So far there were less questions on these committees, but you should know what are these board appointed committees. Normally we believe the company is managed by CEO. Yes, that's the day-to-day business management. But the policies, the risk area, that is seen by these board appointed committees. So you have audit committee, IRMC, Integrated Risk Management Committee. Then we are looking into some other committees appointed by the board. Related party transactions. Okay, first you should know what is a related party transaction, right? So we'll directly look into number 2. The board shall take necessary steps to avoid any conflict of interest. Okay. Last week we talked about conflict of interest. If a person is affected by two motives simultaneously which are conflicting, that is conflict of interest. Okay. So the primary objective of a director of a company or senior management personnel of a company is to ensure profitability of that company. So that is the main interest. But if that interest is affected by his interest of favoring someone else at the cost of the business, now a conflict of interest takes place. The board shall take the necessary steps to avoid any conflict of interest that may arise from any transaction of the finance company with any person, and particularly with the following categories of persons who shall be considered as related parties for the purpose of this direction. Okay, I'll tell you one simple example from politics. Okay, minister is appointed for the country. A minister is not appointed to represent just one ethnicity, just one caste, just one village. But when they perform their tasks, we have seen many times this conflict of interest take place. Suppose a person from Hambantota is appointed as the Minister of Harbour. Very soon we will find what? All employees of Colombo Harbour belong to Hambantota residents. Conflict of interest. Okay. Similarly, there were times minister of a very important portfolio appointed to a Muslim person. Very soon, now that ministry conducts certain exams. Very soon, there are allegations. Those who pass these exams, very high percentage belongs to Muslims. Conflict of interest. You are appointed to the nation, not to ethnicity, not to a village. Right? Being a layman, it may be very difficult. You always want to favor someone, but that's conflict of interest. That should be addressed. That's why for companies, you have this related party transaction. Now, who is a related party from the corporate point of view? Number one, a subsidiary of a finance company. Any associate of a finance company. Now, I said People's Leasing has a subsidiary, People's Insurance. So that's a related party. So we may get insurance policies from People's Insurance. That's a related transaction. Any associate company. There was a time People's Merchant Bank was an associate of ours. A director of the finance company. A key management personnel of the finance company. A relative of a director or the key management personnel. A shareholder who owns shares exceeding 10% of the paid-up capital. A concern in which a director of the finance company or a relative of a director or a shareholder who owns shares exceeding 10% of the paid-up capital of the finance company has substantial interest. So these are the related parties. Okay. We are talking about related party transactions. Number one, you should know who is a related party. That's number one. Number two, you should know what is a transaction. Transaction with a related party can be granting accommodation. I am giving a loan, creating liabilities to finance company in the form of deposits, borrowings and investments. Okay, I'm accepting deposits from a related party, providing financial or non-financial services to the finance company, obtaining those services from a finance company. Okay, we are getting legal service. We are getting advertising. Now these are services we are obtaining. We can get it from a related party. Creating or maintaining reporting lines and informative flows between the finance company and any related party, which may lead to share propriety, confidential or otherwise sensitive information that may give benefits to such related party. Okay, I'll give you one example. Okay, now people's leasing company was discussing with Ceylon Merchant Leasing Company to acquire it. By that time, the share was trading in Colombo Stock Exchange at a value of 5 rupees, highest about 9 rupees. And the moment the announcement came, share went to 30 rupees. That means what? If you are the director of PLC or if you are the director of Ceylon Merchant, only you know that you are discussing to merge these two companies. Okay, so you will inform one of your associate, a related party, buy the share of SMLL at the price of 5. We are going to buy this company at 26 rupees per share. What is trading in the market at 5, after all due diligence, we are going to buy it at 26 rupees. So you may increase your wealth by 5 folds overnight. Okay. The general public is not aware. And if that related party buy enough shares from the market, from the general public who are not aware of this fact, can make a huge earning within 2-3 days, sometimes even without putting a single cent from his pocket, because you are given 3 days to settle, T plus 2, 3 days to settle. Okay, is it fair? When the general public is not aware, they are selling their shares at 5 rupees, which is worth 26 rupees. Without any awareness, general public is selling. Someone is collecting. And he can resell to the general public again at a price higher than 26. Is this fair? Say yes or no. No. So that is called related party transaction. You are not doing anything, but you are sharing information which are confidential and price sensitive that may give benefits to such a related party. Okay. So related party transactions are not illegal, but should be done at arm's length. Means what? You must treat your related party as a party who is not related. How do you do these transactions with the party who is not related with you? Do like that. Okay, so we call that arm's length transaction. Right. The board shall ensure that the finance company does not engage in transactions with a related party in a manner that would grant such party more favorable treatment than is accorded to other similar constituents of the finance company. For the purpose of this paragraph, more favorable treatment mean, now everything is defined. Related party, transaction, and what is meant by more favorable treatment. Number 1, granting of total net accommodation to a related party exceeding a prudent percentage of the finance company's regulatory capital. Okay, so if you give too much loans, that's a related party transaction. Charging of a lower rate of interest than the finance company's best lending rate or paying rate of interest exceeding the rate paid for a comparable transaction with unrelated comparable counterparty. Okay. You are giving a loan to a related party of a finance company's top manager. Okay. You are giving that loan at a lower rate than the best lending rate. So you are treating him a favor in a favorable manner. That should be avoided. Providing preferential treatment such as favorable terms, covering trade losses, and or waiving fees commissions that extend beyond the terms granted in the normal course of business of unrelated parties. Providing obtaining services to or from a related party without proper evaluation procedure. You can give that, but with a proper evaluation procedure. Right. Suppose you are running a finance company and you have to get legal consultants. The wife of the CEO is a leading lawyer. So you may get legal consultancy from her. Right? If you do that, do it in a manner after doing a proper evaluation, giving a chance for others to quote as well, then do a proper evaluation of the cost, then do it. Maintaining a reporting lines and information flows between the finance company and any related party, which may lead to share propriety, confidential or otherwise sensitive information that may give benefit to such related party, except as required for the performance of legitimate duties and functions. Okay. We talked about Raj Rajaratnam. Can you remember who is Raj Rajaratnam? Raj Rajaratnam. We talked about him when we talked about shares. Can anyone remember? Okay. Now, Raj Rajaratnam was a Sri Lankan born investor who lived in US and proved to be a good investor and managing a fund known as Galleon Fund. Galleon Fund proved that they are so good in investment and they almost got the chance to accumulate shares before a sensitive information comes to the market. When the sensitive information comes to the general public's knowledge, he sold the same shares and made a huge profit. And he did it many times. So he was suspected to be having related party transactions. Right? So we talked about how the legal process took place. Right. Raj Rajaratnam was jailed because of this. If you get a chance to access price sensitive information about a share before anyone else comes to know through a related party, and if you get the advantage of it, that's illegal. So Raj Rajaratnam was jailed in US for that act. Then the disclosures. Okay. So one way of removing this related party issue is by disclosures. The board shall ensure that all annual audited financial statements and periodical financial statements are prepared and published in accordance with the formats. Such statements are published in newspapers. Okay, so the newspapers must publish in Sinhala, Tamil, and English. So you have seen almost all banks and finance companies publishing their quarter reports in newspapers of these three languages. A report by the board on the finance company's internal control mechanism that confirms the financial reporting system has been designed to provide a reasonable assurance regarding the reliability of the financial reporting. The external auditor certificate, details of directors. Now these are disclosed in the annual report. Fees remuneration paid by the finance company to directors, so that is published in annual report. So that's another question you may be asked. The directors can increase their remuneration at their own wills and fancies. Now, how do you prevent that? Directors can increase their remuneration by themselves. How do you influence that? How do you ensure that is not leading to malpractices? One way is disclosing that in annual report. Fees remunerations paid by the finance company to the directors in aggregate should be shown in the annual report published after 2010. Total net accommodations outstanding in respect of each category of related parties, and the net accommodation outstanding in respect of each category of related parties as a percentage of capital fund. So these things must be disclosed. We believe one thing: we can discipline people by disclosing. For example, in politics, you must disclose your assets and liabilities. Okay, so that's the ruling. Have you ever seen assets and liability statement of a politician? Okay, right. So you have not seen. Fine. But as per rulings, that must be disclosed. We believe when you are asked to disclose this information, you will act in a disciplined manner. Right. The aggregate values of remuneration paid by the finance company to its key management personnel and the aggregate value of the transaction of the finance company with its key management personnel during the financial year, set out by broad categories such as remuneration paid, accommodation granted, and deposits investments made in the finance company should be disclosed. A report setting out details of the compliance with the prudential requirements regulations and measures taken to rectify any non-compliances. Statement of the regulator and supervisor concerned on lapses in the finance company's risk management or non-compliance with the Act and rules and directions that have been communicated by the director of the Department of Supervision of NBFIs, if so directed by the Monetary Board, to be disclosed to the public, together with the measures taken by the finance company to address such concerns. The external auditor's certificate. Okay. Right, some definitions. Right. So with that, we can end one area of corporate governance. Okay. Now I'll take some time to talk about politics. Okay. So we, the human beings, lived in different eras. First, we lived as cavemen. Then we became communities. When we became communities, we found, after leaving the tribes, we came into feudalism. Okay, so feudalism is a system where you have a king, and after him there is a caste system. In this feudalism, king is the decision maker. He's like God, right? He can take any decision at his own will. He will be advised by some senior people, some senior ministers, but king is the final decision maker of everything. Okay? There's a book called Why Nations Fail. In this book, they take many examples of reasons why countries failed, nations failed. Okay, and they also talk about the reasons why certain countries became so developed. UK developed a lot, and they could capture a huge amount of the world. then followed by US. So one reason they caught is patent right. Means what? Earlier, if someone innovate something, that belongs to king, not to the innovator. Okay? There was an example given in this book. Tiberius, the rule of Rome. During the Tiberius time, an innovator approached Tiberius and said, King, I innovated glass which can bump. Have you ever seen a glass that can bump like a rubber? Yeah. All what we have seen is glasses that may break the moment it falls. This innovator approached Tiberius, the king, and said, King, I created a glass that can bump. King asked from him, have you ever talked to any person about the formula of doing that? He said, no. Then king ordered that person to be killed. Because the king thought bumping glasses would be a threat. Okay? We do not know why he thought like that, but king had that power. Okay? And up to now, we have never seen glasses that are bumping. Okay? But patent right was given to people in UK first. So a lot of people started to innovate things from steam engine to railroads, right? It went up and they had a huge knowledge. With their knowledge, they captured the world. Okay. Right. They created parliament system. King is separate, became a nominal figure. Parliament is the legislation. They make laws, acts. So a bill will be taken to the parliament, a white paper will be taken to the parliament. At the parliament, they discuss in length, an act is passed. Upon this act, people can work. There's an executor. He's executing the activities. Then there is another independent party known as the judiciary, the legal sector. They are looking at whether the executive is running the acts as expected. So these independent three parties are running a country. Such countries became more powerful and strong. And I talked about Japan. Okay. Japan somehow was managing this feudalistic system even in 80s. China was doing that in 80s. Both China and Japan were challenged by UK and US. Surprisingly, by that time, both in China and Japan, there were teenage kings. There's a movie called Last Emperor that talks about the Chinese last king. He was about 10 years old boy. And Japan, there's a movie called Last Samurai, and the king was about 7 years old boy. Okay. And by that time, ministers became very powerful and they decide the fate. In Japan, they thought of looking after the development mechanism of West. So they created a parliament without any influence of the British or US. In Sri Lanka, we were influenced by the British. In India, they were influenced by the British to follow what they are doing. So we followed the parliament system. And we started to develop companies. Japan, they started to develop companies. Last week, I think I showed you Akio Morita, who started Sony company. When they started Sony company, they followed everything what the West is doing. And they slowly came up with these corporate governance things, which the West is doing. Right? So these corporate governance looked into politics of a company. right? How to manage it in a healthy manner. So who is governing a company, and how do you have checkpoints like board appointed committees, related party transactions? Are you going to prevent them forever? Okay, so I'm giving you a question to think. Can you remove related party transactions from a company? Can you 100% remove related party transactions? No. Why? Why can't you remove related party transactions? Yeah, you can't remove all these transactions 100% because we may be doing businesses with a limited people. There can be intercompany, very good. There are many intercompany payments, okay? And people get connected by marriages. Then are we going to all of a sudden stop buying a specific product only available with one company? We can't do that. But when we are doing, we have to do it in a transparent manner. That's why corporate governance takes place. Okay? Right. Then we have another important area. Finance companies information systems security policy. Okay. Every finance company shall maintain information systems security policy in line with at least the minimum requirements stipulated in this direction. Okay, first we'll talk about this information system security, the importance of it. Okay, when we enter to our IT department, so we have one entire floor for IT. There is a nice poster, and they say, the poster reads, some things are not to be shared, and a toothbrush is on. Right? The picture of the poster is toothbrush. Some things are not to be shared. We are not sharing our personal toothbrush with someone else. Okay. In the same manner, your password should not be shared. So that is the poster. Right. So when we enter into the IT, we have to have a finger thumb mark entered and wear a specific ID, and the entire why do we enter into that is registered in the log entry and get it. Okay, IT is so secure, right? Why? Because today we do all these transactions in a information system, not with any logbook entries like we did with last week. I think I gave you an example, the Kalamasu ledger books and ledger sheets. Now we are not doing into that. So we don't have these physical things much, right? IT, you have talked about hackers, right? So people can hack it and your information will be changed. These things will act in a very dangerous manner. So the IT security is a prime concern. I'll tell you another nice story that's shown in a Tamil movie, Irambuthirai. That's Iron Curtain. That's a very nice movie. That there are many Tamil movies talk about the IT security. Irambuthirai is one good movie out of these. It talks about an situation where a person goes to a bank to get a loan, and the bank reject his loan application. He go to many banks. He want, let's say, 1 million. He's a soldier, government soldier, a captain. Many banks reject him giving 1 million because he cannot prove his income sufficient, and they don't have much wealth as well. And when he comes out from a particular bank, someone approach him and say, have you applied for a loan and that got rejected? He confirms it. Then he says, I'll arrange the loan on behalf of you, but you have to pay me a commission. Since he has no other mechanism, he agrees. Okay. Then he asks, how do you do it? Then he says, okay, if you get a personal loan, it's very difficult. Your salary is not sufficient. If you go for housing loan, no, you can't, because you are not really doing that and you don't have wealth. What I do is, I'll give you a business loan through the bank. Then he asks, I don't have business. Okay, fine. There's a business that is registered and we'll do all the correspondence and you will get 1 million. But the moment you get 1 million, you have to pay this much. Let's say 1 lakh, 10%. Okay. You have to pay me 1 lakh. Then he says, okay, at least I get 900,000, I'll agree. And within 2-3 days, he get a SMS alert, 1 million deposited to his account. Then that guy calls and asks him, now you have to settle my amount. He says, okay, I'll bring cash. But the person says, no, a check would do it. So he hand over a check. And after a few days, his father goes to the bank with the newly given ATM card to withdraw money. And father found nothing is remaining in the bank. The entire 900,000 was withdrawn. So he talks to the captain. He comes, he also checked with the ATM card. Nothing is remaining. They go to the bank and bank gets a printout and shows you have withdrawn your money. Okay. So that is the movie. Right. So how do they do it? They have got the signature captured through the check and withdrawn money, and that's their business. Okay. They gave a loan by doing certain manipulations through the same bank. When they deposit money in the customer's account, they withdraw the amount given. And the bank is going behind this government employee to pay the money which they have never enjoyed by manipulating IT system. Okay. So the movie continues, but the importance is information system security. Hackers try to manipulate and get the best. A bank or a finance company should ensure that every possible measure is taken to prevent that. Information system security policy. Every finance company shall compile and maintain a periodical review and well-documented information security system security policy, which shall be, number 1, approved by the board of directors. Number 2, actively supported by the management. Okay. Every finance company shall classify all information and data within the finance company to reflect its level of confidentiality. Every finance company shall create awareness among the staff with adequate training and awareness programs on aspects such as information system security, access controls, procurement and maintaining procedures, network management, business continuity plan. Okay, we may talk about BCP, information systems audit and software licensing. Okay, so these are the things coming under ISSP. Every finance company shall clearly identify and list the assets associated with processing and communication of information, hardware and software and communication equipment, and assign the responsibility of securing all information system assets on an individual who has been authorized by management as follows. Okay. Now, the movie which I talked about finally showed the culprit, which nicknamed White Devil. And he revealed how he entered into this hacking business. He said in this movie, okay, there was an issue called Y2K when the computer systems entered into year 2000. There were some issues. Okay, the systems were not developed to manage this number 2000. Everything was managed with a number less than 2000. So the date of year was always less than 1999. So Y2K issue, many companies disposed many existing computers. So this person purchased these disposed computers and got the data. With that, he entered into this hacking business. That's how the movie says. Anyway, before disposing your hardware, you have to destroy all the information. Otherwise, someone will get it. We have seen many instances where when a mobile phone is given to repair, how some secret information, photos, videos got leaked. Okay. So before disposing hardware, you have to destroy the secret or relevant information. Right. Implement different levels of access controls based on authority levels to ensure confidentiality of information and security of systems. On which information is installed or filed with such controls, covering areas such as managing user access, protect all important servers and power and telecommunication cables carrying data from power failures. Yes. Okay. Servers, power failures, cables, everything should be protected. Ensure that all sensitive data or licensed software have been removed from all items of equipment prior to disposal. So that is shown in the movie. This culprit, White Devil, was created by this loophole. Okay. So we have seen in many instances why or how a person's personal life got affected because he handed over a mobile phone to be repaired without disposing any of the information. Same can happen to a company. In a company, the situation is different. The information may be about the customer, maybe about some amount of wealth we are having. So a person who get hold to this information can play a lot. Okay. So remember, in this movie, at the end, they give a very nice message. They say, your Google search is your subconscious mind. Even though you delete in history, it's not really deleted. Hackers can get hold of this information. With that, they can blackmail you. And they say, banks never ask your password or your confidential information, but there are people who can get you to reveal this information as if they are talking from a bank. So this continues. Okay. So many banks say we are not asking your personal information, but when you talk to check a credit card balance, certain things are said by you. In the same manner, these hackers may get information easily from you by pretending themselves as bankers. When bankers talk, people give a lot of information. And banks are now taking steps to get out of that. So when you talk to, I think, Sampath Bank, when you ask credit card balance, they would say, your balance is automatically sent to your SMS, to the registered mobile phone. Okay, so no more personal. So like right now, banks are improving a lot in their security system. Before disposal, secure the premises where IT systems, data centers are located by limiting physical access to authorized personnel and maintain a record of entry and exit for data centers with proper identification established and recorded prior to any entry of the data center. Yes. So it's like entering to maybe FBI center, right? You have to do all these formalities, but that ensures security of data. Secure the premises where the IT system is located. Number 6, every finance company shall have procedure for purchasing and maintaining commercial software. This process shall include purchasing and installing software, software maintenance and upgrading, security hardware, peripherals and others, developing, testing and maintenance of in-house developed software. That's another area. In-house developed software, right? The employees who develop the software can resign, but still get hold of information. So you have to look into these aspects. Every finance company shall have a security policy for network management. This security policy may include combating cybercrime, e-commerce and intranet information security, security of any other network within the organization, such as automated teller machines. So we are living in such a different world, right? And this information can easily get out and get into people who are planning to do some crimes through cyber. Right? I'll tell you another nice example. One of my friends has given a camera with zooming, a modern camera with zooming facility, to his child as a birthday gift. Okay. Now one day, his son, maybe about 12 years old, has zoomed and got the password of a router of a neighbor's house. Okay. So he has peeped his camera, zoomed the router's password, and he has access through this password to the data, Wi-Fi. Okay. The father has immediately advised, son, you have done a severe mistake, a crime punishable. You should never ever use your mind to get involved in this kind of activities. My dear, in this modern world, what is started in jest will end in earnest. There are many simple things like what that child has done. Right? Suppose someone get hold of your password of the router and use your Wi-Fi, and you are paying unnecessarily without knowing who is really using it. Okay, you will never suspect an outsider. You think, okay, a family member, your brother or sister or someone from your own family is doing that, because you never think that password will be zoomed by someone far away. Okay, very simple. So we are living in such a world that protection of IT system has become extremely difficult, but we had to do that. Now BCP, Business Continuity Plan. I'll ask you one very simple question. LTTE was running a show for more than 30 years. And within a week or two, that show ended. Why? Contrast to that, okay, JVP was running similarly a show for from 1983 to 1989, 6 years. But it still remains in business. It still remains. Why LTTE vanished and why JVP remained? One very simple reason. Tell me that. We are talking about business continuity plan. I'm asking you, one organization vanished. Another organization doing same thing, similar thing, survived. And we are talking about business continuity plan. Why one survived and why one vanished? Okay, right. In one case, all the leaders, all the non-leaders gathered in one remote area and they were all killed. In the other one, they lived in different locations, so it was very difficult to capture them. Almost all were captured and killed, but one managed to get out of this country and go to India. From India, he went to Europe and reorganized and came back. Okay, business continued to plan. If one leading member of LTTE or a family member of LTTE leader survived living somewhere else, the story would have been different. Okay? Business continue to plan, right? So in organizations, there are some rules like the entire top management cannot move in the same or travel in the same plane, right? So in certain family businesses which are ongoing concern, they have such rules. Okay. Every finance company shall have a business continuity plan covering disaster management and risk analysis, which shall be implemented after testing and acceptance, including the following. Assign the maintenance of BCP to authorized officer. Okay. So we have a BCP manual. In this BCP manual, a lot of areas are covered. Okay, when flood comes, what you are going to do? For tsunami, for fire, for terrorism attack. Okay, then on-scene commanders, right? Suppose the head office get destroyed, maybe fire, maybe bomb, maybe a disease. Head office and its staff get destroyed. Does it mean that a bank or a finance company with 100 branches should die? Basically, the head office is the place where this IT center is located. That's gone, including the people. Does it mean the company should vanish from planet Earth? No, there are disaster recovery centers. There are other places. Okay, so when a disaster comes, what are you going to do? Say when COVID-19, all of a sudden, unexpected, the government imposed curfew throughout the country. But the banks and finance companies and insurance ran the show. Okay. Sometimes certain branches are locked down, but all the activities of the branch took place. That's business continuity. Okay. We, Sri Lanka, have seen so many disasters and we survived. Tsunami hit Sri Lanka. We overcame. 30 years of war. Even the central bank was bombed, but we survived. Now, COVID-19 is affecting. Okay, so a business must have a business continuity plan in place. Right, prepare a backup policy based on imports of relevant system with the necessary backup being tested periodically. Implement procedures to be detect and respond to information security incidents, which shall include procedures for reporting information systems. Every finance company shall conduct periodic information system audits where the responsibilities for the audits are assigned. Every finance company shall comply with legal and policy requirements to relate software licensing, which shall include complying with copyright and software licensing legislation. Okay, so that's on BCP. Right. We have discussed about corporate governance. We have talked about BCP, and today we looked into superannuation. Right. So we have covered almost all areas relevant for your exam. We have to talk about capital adequacy. Okay. Then we have to talk about cooperative societies. After that, we are completing the entire syllabus. Now it's your duty to go through all these notes or slides I have given you and prepare for the exam. Okay. So I'm leaving you some questions now. Try to write some lengthy answers. So far we have discussed only very short answers and very short questions. So I'm giving you some questions where you have to write a lengthy answer, say about 6-7 lines. Okay, so I'll give you one question. Take your time, and maybe in chat box you can write the answer. So we'll do that experiment today. After that, we'll look into a mechanism where you can send me your answer scripts. Okay, so after completing these two topics, we have to look into exam questions and answers. Okay, so I'm giving you a question. Write down. Venture capital helps for the development of a country. Comment. Venture capital helps for the development of a country. Comment. So write about 5-6 lines and send me the answer to chat box now. I'm just experimenting whether we can do this. Venture capital helps for the development of a country. Comment. Okay, take few minutes and try to write your answer and send it in the chat box. So I want you to think and write. For an example, when you don't have venture capital, people move into conventional banking. So the differences between conventional banking and venture capital, right? So with venture capital, how the innovative products takes place. For an example, Apple. Okay, then having such businessmen or entrepreneurs running new products will help to the development. But when conventional banks look into credit evaluation, they will reject such proposals. Then how does it affect? Okay, so I want you to think on that angle. And okay, very good, I get a good answer. Venture capital is a mechanism of providing private equity for startups. Very good. Regulated lenders. Okay, so what I just mentioned, you have mentioned perfectly well. Regulated lenders such as banks and financial intermediaries take calculated risks. Hence, for individuals who do not have any collateral or payback history, it is hard to obtain finance. Very good. Hence, for the country's development, it is necessary that young generation or innovative ideas are given prominence by way of funding, which is aided by venture capital firms, angel investors. In the meantime, for venture capital, successful capital market is a necessity. Very good. Right. So I think after completing my uh, syllabus related subject topics, I can look into this kind of question and answer session. Okay. Now, one problem which I'm facing, even I may see a crowd about 10 or more, I see answers only from 1 or 2. Okay. So in a normal classroom, after giving a question, I will walk around. So everyone is writing. I can see the pens running. Okay. Then I can see the different levels. That activity I don't see with this uh, distant learning. Okay. Right. So we'll just look into some areas we have so far discussed. Can you remember the act relevant for pawning? Can anyone tell me the ordinance relevant for pawning? Good. Number 13 of 1942. That's ordinance, right? Okay. Can someone tell me the three parties involved in a leasing? Three parties involved in a leasing facility. But there are basically two parties. Who are they? Lessor, lessee, and the supplier. Very good. Okay. Right. Then operating lease. Okay. So the normal question for your exam is, what is the difference between operating lease and finance lease? Now I'll ask you something which you can have to think and write. Why do you think operating lease is not popular in Sri Lanka? Why do you think that? Okay, what are the facts behind operating lease not being popular? Another way, why do you think why do you think the facts behind operating lease not being popular in Sri Lanka? Another way, operating lease is not popular like finance leasing in Sri Lanka. Why? Operating lease is not as popular as financial lease in Sri Lanka. Why? Okay, send me answer. Okay, so the ownership is not transferred at the end. There is no option of transferring the ownership at the end of the lease period. In Sri Lanka, lessees want to get the ownership at the end of the use period. Therefore, finance lease is popular because it has an option of transferring the ownership. Okay. Gold pawning has become a very popular financial instrument. Why? Give me 5 reasons. Gold pawning has become a very popular financial instrument. Why? Quick to obtain the loans, less documentation, very good. What else? CRIP. Then from the bank's point of view, okay, at that as well. Okay, very good. What are the alternative financing methods of, what are the alternative funding methods of a specialized leasing company? Okay, good. What are the alternative funding methods of a specialized leasing company? Okay, promissory notes, commercial papers, equity, bank borrowings. Right, good. Okay, so I'm happy with the way you're answering. I know at least 4 people are answering me perfectly well, and I want to see others answering as well. So next week, I'll look into capital adequacy. Okay, so what are the ingredients of core capital? Okay, what is meant by supplementary capital, tier 1, tier 2 capital, capital adequacy levels. Okay, a little bit of Basel, little bit of risks like credit, operational, marketing, and strategic risks. What are they? What is systemic risk? Okay, and we'll look into that next week. Then I have to do cooperative societies. With that, basically, I can say I completed the entire syllabus. But today I'm happy with the way you use the chat box for answering. If that is possible, we'll look it with some real exam questions. If that is possible, then we can continue using the chat box for answering as well. If not, I may think about some other mechanism. Right. So with that, I'll end today's session. And I see by now some of you are really good in answering. You are going through the notes. Very good. But now my question is, even though I see more than 10 people, some of you have never answered me. I do not know whether you are here or not. Right? So I want to see the silent people also becoming active. Okay, with that I'll end today's session. Thank you.